Hello and welcome to our weekly roundup of the latest news in blockchain gaming. I am Jenny Jordan, and with me is co-host John Jordan and two little pudgies.
Some friends. It's actually about a year ago. I think I got those. Actually, it's probably about a year ago since they released the first plushy pudgies. They've actually lasted quite well, haven't they?
They have, yes, and much excitement actually in the house when you got those. And now we are even more excited because, well, previously was it in May or something this year? Sorry, I just put this to the side. We had the news that Mythical Games and Pudgy Penguins were collaborating on a Web3 mobile game based on the Pudgy Penguins IP.
Yeah.
And actually not in sort of significant news, but Mythical Games they've now revealed that the title of that game is going to be Pudgy Party, and it's going to be sort of a social royale game with PvP modes. You can play against friends and family, and you can team up, and there'll be customization of avatars and that sort of thing. Yeah, but there's quite a lot of mythical in your world, isn't it, at the moment? So tell us what you've been up to more than sort of in the ecosystem,
Just to talk a bit about Pudgy. So I guess the interesting thing about Pudgy Penguins is, in the last year, it has been the sort of top sort of performing what we used to call PFP sort of NFT collection. So it's still maintained its sort of 10 ETH sort of floor price, and it's sort of definitely been seen as a leader in terms of doing things like plushies. And I think they did. I mean, it wasn't like amazing balls, but they sold about $1 million sort of dollars worth. I think of those first ones. I think they're planning on sort of another line since, and it's definitely, been the sort of NFT collection people are sort of looking towards to sort of be a bit more mass market than something like maybe Bored Apes are obviously still going, and Azuri and all those sort of more sort of edgy ones. That sort of the Penguins are sort of that more mass market, and I think their game is sort of interesting. It's sort of the game you'd expect. It's basically Fall Guys with Pudgy Penguins, I guess, but on mobile. Fall Guys is on mobile now, but you can sort of imagine it being sort of a sort of nice sort of have a bit of sort of competition but in a sort of a non-competitive sort of atmosphere, if that makes any sense. And I do sort of notice as well that we are starting to see lots of other games doing collaborations with Pudgy Penguins. So in the way that sort of Bored Apes sort of at a certain level, then Pudgy Penguins is there's a few games I'm starting to see who are going to be launching integrations with Pudgy Penguins, so you can play Pudgy Penguins characters in sort of shooting games and all that sort of. So it is interesting. But as you say, yes. So my week has basically been sort of dominated by one of Mythical's other games. So their original game, Blankos Block Party, and actually, one of the reasons that Pudgy Party, I imagine, will take a lot of inspiration from Blankos Block Party, which is a very similar sort of project with these very cute sort of characters. And that was sort of you went into a hub area and you could sort of mess around just playing in the hub area and do little missions in there. And then you went into mini games, so they had like a shooting mini game and a collection mini games, and there was actually a UGC. It wasn't really that well used, but you could create your own levels and sort of make different games in there. So Mythical has quite a lot of experience in that. So I say Blankos, actually the NFTs launched in 2019, seems a long time ago now, and the PC game was out for a couple of years. Then they took the PC game down, and they're remaking it as a mobile game. But as part of that, they've moved all the NFTs. So I did a sort of calculation. There's probably about 400,000 individual NFTs.
Oh.
And there's I keep finding new ones, but at the moment I've tracked 181 different Blankos characters. So there's obviously different numbers of each Blankos character. There's one called Golden Ticket. There's only one of him, but all the other ones have tens to thousands. I think the biggest one was 58,000 for one of them. They sort of did a giveaway, an Amazon giveaway, I think. So there's all these Blankos, and they were originally on their own sort of Mythical's chain that was just called I don't even really had a name. But anyway, they've sort of migrated all those NFTs over to their new chain, the Mythos chain, which is running as in the Polkadot ecosystem. So that's quite a big sort of engineering undertaking. And that means that the Blankos are now within the Mythical Market. And the Mythical Market was launched with the NFL Rivals NFTs, so they're sort of licensed sports characters. There's also a racing game called Nitro Nation, which is being sort of quite slow, but there's cars in there, and now there's Blankos in there. So for the first time in a couple of months, you're able to buy and sell Blankos. What's interesting for people like me who collect a lot of Blankos and have been sort of involved for the early days is when they moved it over, the old marketplace sort of all the listings got destroyed. So now we're going through a period where people who have Blankos are now putting them up for sale, and you're starting to work out the prices. And it's kind of interesting. Some of the prices, the most expensive ones, have sort of gone up quite a lot because people are hopeful that someone might buy them. But some of them have gone down. So you sort of go through this process, and every day at the moment I'm looking at it to see, and it's all quite interesting. Some things are still going. Generally, things are going down in price because if you want to sell something and it doesn't sell, the only thing you can do is drop the price. But some things are sort of going up as well, and it's sort of interesting. Interesting times for those of us sort of Blankos OGs, and there are a few of us. It's sort of nice to sort of reconnect with some of them on Twitter. some old familiar faces who bought. I mean, I think I bought a lot. I've got about 200. It's people who have thousands out there. So, but it's good. I mean, we obviously we await the day where Blankos Mobile goes live, and that will hopefully be, but that will be sometime next year, but we don't know.
Well, kind of to a deeper point here, I think this is in a way where Web3 shows its strength in a way, because this could have been just a Web2 game, which maybe they cancelled or shut down, and because these assets these sort of Blankos wouldn't have had any worth or value, and people would have just forgotten it, moved on. Okay, they're launching another game or whatnot.
Yeah,
But because they are NFTs, and maybe because they were some of the earliest and Blankos was one of the first games to come to Epic, all these things sort of accumulate, and due to that, it has some sort of inherent value because of that. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
and exactly. I mean, I think... obviously, I guess going back to the start, people wouldn't have bought Blankos at the prices that some of us bought them at if they weren't NFTs. If they were just like in-game characters, then obviously you wouldn't spend more than probably $100 sort of cap on some of them. Whereas, I don't know what the most expensive ones that have been sold as, but some have gone for tens of thousands of dollars. So there is some sort of, whether people think they're an investment like buying, I don't know, a Nasdaq ETF or something, or maybe they think it's a bit like gold or Bitcoin or something. It's not quite at that level, but there is some idea of investment, and I think Mythical Games to some degree has its reputation staked on something like Blankos, which is why as you say, they could have just kept the PC game going in a sort of a not really developed mode forever, because it was playable. There just weren't many people in there, and they sort of realised that they felt they had a good game, and they were going to try and get it wider and redo it for mobile. So I guess the problem sort of happens where people do think these things are sort of like a bit of a investment Ponzi scheme crypto thing, where you can buy these things cheap and they're going to go up 1,000%. I mean, the most expensive ones they sold, I think, it was about $400. I think that the most expensive Blankos that Mythical sold onto people. But in some of those Blankos now, even if you can sell them, they might be $50 or something like that. So that's the sort of problem where unsophisticated people might sort of lose a lot of money, which is the same for crypto anyway. But I just think the Blankos characters are, nothing to do with blockchain, are just very, very strong. If it was a Web2 game, they are just very strong visual characters. They're called Blankos because they're like vinyl blanks. Like I don't collect vinyl characters, but if you do, you get blanks, and sometimes people paint them up, and they've worked with proper vinyl designers, some names in the business that doesn't mean anything to me really, but they've worked with these people to build these sort of collections out. And I'm sure when the mobile game comes out, there'll be a whole bunch of, obviously they're releasing new ones, so whether the old ones will be worth anything, I mean, some of them will be, some of them won't be, I suppose. And even now, like the cheapest ones are like $3, so you can just sort of buy these things very cheaply. But it's in terms of the blockchain side, as you say, there is something particular about Blankos being one of the early games. It was, say, the first game to go live on the Epic Game Store, and it's even interesting now that even if Mythical went away as a company and the blockchain went away, some of them are on Ethereum, so I actually own some Blankos on Ethereum that at one point you could bridge them over. So some of those Blankos will live for as long as Ethereum is, and potentially could be used in other games, even if Mythical goes away. So there's something of the dream there.
Very good. And how have you been getting on with the Mythical Forest airdrop?
Oh yeah, so that's a good point. So Mythical have been doing quite a lot of sort of marketing around this sort of migration to Polkadot. They did do some sort of airdrop on when it happened. I'm not quite sure how that was organised, but I didn't get any of that. And they did this other one called the Mythical Forest that was a bit of a like a social farming thing, like we see with Immutable with its gems and all this sort of stuff. So that was, you could do stuff, social farming, or you could, if you had tokens, you could stake that. So there was the top 3,000 wallets got the top 3,000 wallets can mint an NFT, and then that will reward them with some Myth token at some point in the future. So that's cool. And there's another proposal going through that I was sort of involved with actually in the early days, which is that the original holders of Blankos, because Blankos was Mythical's first game, they're going to be giving away 2 million Myth tokens, which is about $500,000 worth over the next sort of few months in 2025, and they're going to basically be a big leaderboard. The more Blankos you own and the rarer Blankos you own, the more points you get per Blanko. Then there'll be a big leaderboard, and then it'll be distributing these Myth tokens as a way of sort of rewarding the sort of Blankos community, which is, the NFL Rivals game has worked really well, but that's not really, doesn't promote itself as a blockchain game. There's no blockchain community around NFL Rivals. That's just people playing a mobile game. Whereas Blankos was a proper Web3 community of sort of collectors and all that sort of stuff. So I think it is sort of right that those people are rewarded, and it's not an enormous amount, and I think those people probably won't sell their tokens anyway. If they're anything like me, they'll be spending them on more Blankos. Sorry.
Good. Right. So in other news, we've got Immutable has been targeted by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange, by a wealth notice. It's based on a blog post that dates back to 2021, and it's about an investment into the IMX, which is a pre-launch investment into the IMX token. It's not really that many details revealed yet.
No.
Well, that's what Immutable claims anyway, and I've not actually seen the notice itself, but it seems to have been a few details were clarified in a call shortly after they had been handed the notice. It seems to have been very sort of haphazardly handled. So I guess it's the kind of news here is this is the first Web3 game. There's loads of crypto companies, obviously, that have received these notices from the SEC before, but this is the first time a Web3 gaming specific company is targeted, and a Web3 gaming token is the sort of main issue. And as a result of that news, the IMX token also dipped sort of, I think, 15%. Which it's not sort of going down much, it looks, at the moment, but sort of immediately following the news, they had a big plummet. Yeah, what have you got to add to that, John?
I mean, all these sort of things, I guess your view on it depends quite a lot on what you think about the SEC. Probably most people listening to this will think the SEC is at best sort of a bit of a joke, or maybe at best may think it's sort of has a difficult problem trying to sort of regulate crypto, and at worst thinks it's a bit of a joke. I'm definitely on the bit of a joke sort of side of it there, where clearly it's been a very politicized US organization, like a lot of US organizations have been recently. I mean, it's just sort of, I can definitely see, you do want to regulate crypto. I guess the crypto companies say with the SEC, we want to be regulated, but the SEC sort of seems to say, we want crypto companies to be regulated. And as soon as crypto companies come to them, they say, what you're selling is a security, so you need to have all this sort of security law, and you can't sell you only sell to accredited investors, and crypto people say, well, that's not really how it works, and we don't think this is a security. And there's, and there's sort of like this grudging idea now that Bitcoin isn't a security. I think everyone agrees on that. Everyone's sort of umming and ahhing still about whether Ethereum is a security. And then if and the SEC seems to think everything else is. So effectively, from the SEC's point of view, it could go after anyone for anything. And it is sort of, even I think from a sensible legal point of view, the argument would be, even if you hate crypto, the SEC is incompetent because it's going after too many companies, and it's gone after Ripple and Coinbase and OpenSea and Crypto.com, and these are quite big companies, and they can probably spend more on lawyers and get better lawyers than the SEC can, and the SEC is fighting all these cases, and the SEC has lost some cases in some ways it's lost some very egregious cases where it was proven to be incompetent and lying in terms of how it put forward the legal precedent. Immutable just seems incompetent. Immutable is a Australian company. If we believe what they've said, that what the SEC has told them, it's about a blog post from 2021 saying that the exchange Huobi is investing in the IMX token. And Huobi was a Chinese, Hong Kong-based entity, so nothing to do with the US. If you look at the blog post, it has the whole legal stuff at the bottom. This is not this press release is not for viewing in the US and all this. So it's not like you could argue that Immutable, Immutable token, like everything else, is a security. But this is an investment agreement between two companies who are not in the US. As far as I know, Immutable has never sold its tokens to people in the US, apart from accredited investors. So what the SEC is, this has got enough on its plate without, going around the world sort of doing this sort of stuff. And again, Immutable is fairly deep-pocketed. I think it will have lawyers. The case will drag on. Obviously, the American election is next week, so why they would do this now? Yeah, and it's sort of obviously if Trump wins, Gary Gensler will be out. Even if Kamala Harris wins, Gary Gensler would probably want to leave and get a better job, because basically he's the most hated man in crypto by a long shot. And as we all know, it's sort of hilarious because when he was an academic, he was quite into crypto and would lecture on it and was an advisor to Algorand. So I just kind of think it's just in some ways the irony is. It's actually quite good for Immutable, because it's like, we're part of the big boy club now. We're so important that we got a Wells notice. The point about a Wells notice anyway is that it doesn't mean anything. It just means the SEC thinks you may have done something wrong and is investigating. Good
point. It's not a formal lawsuit yet or anything.
No. So OpenSea has had a Wells notice for whatever 6 months and nothing's happened. And sometimes I think Delabs, they had a Wells notice out, and then the SEC said we're not doing anything about it. So it is a little. It's I think very performative for everyone. So the SEC can say we're doing stuff, and Immutable can say, we're one of the big boys. But I think it's sort of meaningless, and I can't see this. It's just it's just bizarre. I think. Oh dear, sorry. Having problems.
Right, in further news, we have SNK's Shodown Samurai R. Mobile game. Well, initially not a mobile game. The IP is from 1993, and it was since relaunched as a mobile game, and it is now rebooted for a Web3 game coming to Sui by a PC, and its handheld gaming device Sui Play. How do you say it? OX1.
0x1, I think, isn't it?
0x1. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's SNK, well-known Japanese company who do a lot of beat 'em ups, but Shodown Samurai is not, I think, one of its better known projects. So I had sort of only vaguely heard of it before. So what's interesting is it originally was I think they claim it was one of the first weapons-based beat 'em up games. So it's a fighting game, but you use weapons rather than sort of Tekken or something where you're just fighting. And they've shown a bit of footage of it, and this is like an MMORPG, so it has obviously fighting elements. That's the RPG bit, but it's like it's a proper 3D game. You're going around with sort of mounts on horses, and so it looks like a fairly. We'll see how substantial it is. Coming out on PC, obviously the bigger point I guess is this underlines Sui, which really this year has somewhat not reinvented itself totally, but Sui was never had anything much going on with gaming, and this year they've sort of sorted out a new gaming team, and they are clearly spending some money on grants, and they are getting some, I wouldn't say massive games, but in Society, sort of the Korean shooter is sort of their headline game, and that's a pretty good game played that one, and then is it Dead Dark Lands, Dark Times from Animoca, which again looks sort of looks an interesting game. So they're starting to build up a slate of proper games from proper game developers. So yeah,
good. And the Sandbox, which launched its Alpha Season 4 2 weeks ago, is well on track to break some user records compared to, what did it say? Let's get the figures up here. So it has garnered a total of 276,000 unique players so far. It's got 8 weeks to go still, and it's had 30,000 people buying the Alpha Pass, which is part of the Battle Pass, which went on sale for about 25 Sand at the kickoff of the season. So Sebastian Borge is excited and sees it as the metaverse is healthy and vital, and it says players are hungry for content and experiences. So this sort of, in a way, reviews what you've been, not reviews, but you've been sort of a little bit maybe negative, or a bit, what would you say, critical about the slow pace of at which the Sandbox is moving, and perhaps have thought that they've lost a bit of momentum as that. But this kind of shows in a way that what momentum might have been lost has picked up again, which shows that when you release stuff, actually momentum does pick back up. So
when you release stuff and pay people to play it, so like all these things, the caveat here is they're giving away, over the period of this, whatever it is, 2 months, they're giving away $2 million worth of Sand tokens. So, I'm not negative. The Sandbox. I hope it's really successful. I own land in Sand, so for my own personal sort of benefit, I hope it does really well. I just kind of think, it's with all these things, you can obviously get people to do stuff by giving them stuff. So, it's good that they're doing better than, for all their alphas, they've always given away stuff. I think they're giving away more stuff now. But if you give people tokens, I mean, obviously some people will just sell it, and some people will keep it and buy things in there, or just sort of keep it, or you can stake Sand. I can't remember. I don't think you get a massive return on that, but you can do that. I guess so my theory is this thing's going to finish in mid-December, and then if they wait another 6 months to sort of go live properly, then every time you do it, you sort of that momentum sort of dissolves. So I think if they finish this and then say we're going live mid-February, global launch or early access, whatever they want to call it, then I think that's fine. I think and even with the Sandbox, such a big thing, I just kind of think they need something to be live and permanent, and they can gradually add more things in. I just think this sort of cycling through content all the time is not I think not the way I would do it, but I don't run a metaverse, so what do I know? So yeah.
No, you don't. Right. Telegram, lots of Telegram. So I mean, these days there's just so much Telegram news every day. We get developers and new projects starting, and not game developers, but other developers suddenly releasing games experiences, mini type experiences on Telegram. The maybe most significant one this week has been Delabs Games, the South Korean company springing out of 433 Creative Lab. They announced earlier this year, well, they were initially launching their kind of flagship PC racer, Rumble Racing Star. It launched it on on Polygon. And they announced that would migrate to Arbitrum, along with the other two titles that Delabs were working on at the time, Space Frontier and Metabolts. Now, in sort of quite a surprising pivot, they have announced that they are going to halt the development of those two titles. I don't know what exactly will happen with Rumble Racing Star, but they are moving basically their entire efforts now to launching games on Telegram and Ton. And it's not just sort of hyper casual experiences, which are currently dominating the sort of Telegram gaming space, but they have the intention of going in with midcore games because they, the CEO Jun Mo Kwon, if that's how you say it, I'm not sure, excuse me if that's wrong, but he basically says that the experience from 433 Creative Labs shows that they initially launched their games on Kakao's messaging app, and they saw success with their mid-core games there, and so they are trying to sort of I suppose copy that model in Telegram. But the gap is sort of the time gap is not massive for this because obviously other studios are going to realize this. They want to be early, and hence why sort of just shifting focus entirely and going all in Telegram and Ton. And the first game title they will work on there is mobile sports game Boxing Star, which did see success on Kakao Talk under 433 Creative Lab. Hope I got all that right.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as you say, sort of every... it's a common occurrence now that people are pivoting entirely or definitely looking to use Telegram as part of their growth strategy. I think that's partly because there's so little going on elsewhere in blockchain that unless you are building a very sort of substantial project like the Sandbox or Block Lords or some of these sort of big games, Blankos maybe, if you're doing that, then that's what you're doing. I mean, you could probably do some Telegram games to try and bring people in. So the one we talk about a lot, because I play it a lot, is Tatsumiko, which is a browser RPG on Ronin, launching on Ronin, and they've got quite a substantial Telegram game called Lumin. What is it? Lumina Hunt. And that's more of a token sort of play going on there. But I guess interesting for Delabs, as you say, they were working on 3 sort of big PC mobile games, and I think we've spoken to them quite a lot. I've played the games. The Rumble Race Stars was good as the sort of kart racer goes. They never sort of gained any real traction. You said they moved blockchains. They had an NFT sort of passes, and I'm not sure their token ever went live. Can't remember. Don't think it did. I think I don't think it did. Postponed it. And so it's clear that they're probably spending, whatever they're spending on their staff, quite a lot of money every month to be building something out, and it's really not clear that it's working for them. And that's not really to do with the quality of what they're putting out. It's more to do with just the market as it is. And probably for those games like Space Frontier was probably the most interesting one. It's like a extraction shooter type of the game. Those are just really expensive games. And even Metabolts, I played an early version of. It was bonkers. I mean, it's very, very Korean RPG. I mean, but on the sort of slightly surreal edge of what was going on there, really. So again, that was interesting, but hard to see getting a mass market on it. So, in some ways, if something's not working and you can't, there's no point just ploughing on, wasting money in the hope that something happens. It's a good CEO sort of makes it. It's a hard decision. We're stopping what we're doing and we're doing something different. And he, the CEO of Delabs, has been in games for a couple of decades, I think. And as you say, they've sort of seen this stuff happening previously in Korea, where Kakao came up in sort of 2013, I think. It's a mobile messaging app, and they started putting games on it. And it was very much like Facebook gaming as it was. You had this social network that everyone could ping their friends. And it was massive in Korea. Basically, all the mobile games that were successful off the back of Kakao. And that was how their parent company, 433, said they made $100 million in sort of the first year of Kakao going live because they were quick with these midcore games. So now that they've got all these midcore games, presumably on Kakao, and now they're going to port them all to Telegram. And I think, in some ways, we can sort of laugh at it, all these people pivoting. But if you're running a company that's losing money and you're going to have to refinance or get some more investment, and you're basically all you can tell the investors is we're going to keep doing what we're doing and it's not working, then that doesn't work. They have got some more money out of Tom, the Tom sort of foundation or venture fund, and a Korean investor as well. So they've got some more money to try out this. And the one thing you do get with Telegram is pretty much any game you can get 1 million users pretty easily. and that's definitely not the case for any other blockchain game. So they have that virality. Obviously, there's this whole thing about bots and all that sort of stuff that we sort of touched upon, and there's quite big arguments and debates around what percentage of bots there are and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely it makes the decision sort of makes sense from a high point of view, but equally when you move business models, you may feel you get a big opportunity, but obviously lots of other people are going to that opportunity as well. So it's more competition, and obviously it comes with its own set of problems. So I was in my podcast this week. I was talking to the CEO of Tonton Games, and they're a publisher of Telegram games. Very new startup. They've published half a dozen. They got 10 that they want to publish. They say every week they're getting just loads of inbound of people who these games are very easy to make, and they're not experienced like Delabs. They're more like from tech entrepreneurs than games people, really. But they're like, we want to make games. We want to use the viral nature of Telegram games, and we want to extend that into deeper experiences. How can we do that? So one of their games is sort of like a match 2 racing or sort of racing themed game, and they're going to have NFT skins of the cars, and they're going to try and get people into a sort of drag racing game. And sort of extend it that way. So I wouldn't say they're going into mid-core type stuff, but everyone's looking to take these mini games and make them, have better retention. But this guy was saying, the CEO Daniel from Tonton Games was saying, at the moment, really, in Telegram, there's no good advertising marketing platforms. You can advertise in there to get games from other people, so there is obviously a basic advertising network, but compared to mobile games where it's incredibly detailed ad tech going in there, it's 10 years worth of investment to build these very big advertising networks. He says nothing like that in Telegram at the moment. That's one of the things people are now looking to build. It's one of the things they're trying to build as a publisher. So you gain opportunity, but there's also lots of challenges that come with it. So nothing is sort of simple. But it's probably
didn't they say that he at one point he was playing his own game and an ad came up for the actual game he was playing?
He was basically saying there's no way when you put your game into a sort of the basic ad networks that are there's no way of saying I don't want my ad to appear in my own game, clearly, because they're already playing it. So there's the idea of blacklist and whitelist. So there's games that you definitely want to appear in, games that you don't want your ads to appear in. That's like ad network 101. They're not even at that stage yet on Telegram, so very early days. And I guess it is sort of still predicated on the fact that is Telegram going to be growing, as much as it is. I guess the other interesting thing about Telegram, very briefly, is it does have this star system, which is its own in-app purchase system, and that seems to be people do seem to be spending money buying these stars, and the stars work across all the games, so it's like an in-game money system for Telegram. And so even blockchain games, people are spending money perhaps to get better rankings on the leaderboards, to get more tokens, but people are starting to I think Tonton said their Drift Party game, they're generating a few thousand, well, it sounds like a few $1,000 or $10,000 a day on that.
Four figure, I think it's in.
Four figures, yeah, I think 4 figures a day on that, which is for a game that probably costs tens of thousands of dollars to make, that's suddenly into ROI into profit quite quickly on that. So.
Good. And also, obviously, when something gains the momentum that Ton has at the moment, more money goes into it, and they can offer more grants. So that's another incentive, obviously, for a fairly, you would say, dry investment kind of sector at the moment. And that's exactly what Delabs announced today, in fact, that they had been receiving some significant investment from Ton Foundation as well as other external.
And obviously we know, the big guns, Yatsu's been very bullish on Ton for 6 months. Animoku's sticking loads of money into it. And as when I spoke to sort of Simon from Mighty Action Heroes, who again, they've it's a bit more complex pivot what they're doing, but they're going to basically Telegram. And he was saying, our investors want to see big numbers playing our games, and we can't get that on just as a browser-based game. They don't want to see tens of thousands of players. They want to see millions of players. So, people want big numbers, and there are big numbers on Telegram. So.
Big bot numbers as well, we should add.
Well,
anyway. No, you're right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for tuning in this week, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.